Howdy folks, just getting fork cover put on this little 3/4 scale saddle for this year's TCAA show. Got the rigging in, got the gullet cover on this oak tree made by Warren Wright, and I just thought I'd step through some of the things that I would do to how would I cut out designed, shall we say, a fork cover for this out of basically whole cloth. So anyway, I just wanted to, so that I don't, as you may have seen me do before, I often pattern cut these wades on these Warren Wright trees because I've made so many of them that I've got a pattern. I just cut it out and put it on, and that's that. But for most of you, you maybe not doing enough repetition in order to get that dialed in. So, but this is what you're going to have to engage in order to develop a pattern to begin with. So I've got a piece of shoulder leather here, and it's actually a really nice clean piece. And I try to cut the best leather for the front. Here is where the majority of wear is going to be on a fork cover, and we're asking more molding of the back edge of it, so with it folding under inside the handhold and that sort of thing. So how do I determine where that horn hole is? So I just fold this piece of wild leather in half, set it on there, and just take a look at how much room I would figure I'd need for my fold back on the front lip here, about how much, and I've got this is way bigger than what I'm ever going to need, which kind of, since I wasn't sure exactly, so I just cut me a pretty big piece. So I make a reference mark for the center of the neck of the horn, make a reference mark there, and then the fold of course gives me a center line right here. And then I put my calipers on here or my dividers I should say, or calipers, either one, determine what the diameter of the base of the horn is, and then cut that out. In this case I had a hole punch that was 1 7/8 inches, which turned out to be just right. So I slip this on there to kind of set things up and get it situated so it's kind of plumb, more or less, with the saddle tree. And then I come in and I take let me back up here. I have to rethink my process. I don't do this very often, but what I've had to do on this, of course, is scale everything back by 3/4 of an inch. So these are enormous nails that I won't use later on, but for now, just for a temporary situation, I'll pinch this up a little bit. Now you may recall with some of the other stuff you've seen me do, I like to have about 1 inch for from the end of the handhold to the other end, from point to point. Whatever that measurement is, I need about 1 inch extra. So with this being everything, it's just going to be a shorter distance. That's going to measure something, roughly 3/4 of the distance. So I'm not going to want quite 3/4 of an inch. So I come in here and just down from that point, it needs to be, of course, ahead of the strainer plate. And do the same side, same thing on this other side. Just temporarily tack that. And then come in, and if I do this wrong, you be sure and let me know, okay? So I need to get good contact here on this lip, and I come down and just I'm using a smaller, these are smaller awls that I might normally use. And then I've got things anchored in those 4 points, just like so. I pinched up a little bit here. I know I was pretty evasive on how much that is, but yeah, it's probably going to need to be about 3/4 of an inch of slack. Yeah, probably got that. So flip this up and take a look here, and come in and make just a tracing of the point on either side right there. So I identify where, and then just trace around here. With pencil right there, and then take these off. It's ready to come off. Make some cuts using the reference marks that I just made. Okay, now we'll go over here and I'll show you what I do. Okay, I got the rough outside up here on my table. I can see some reference lines here. I've got that juncture of the fork and the bar right there, arcing over here, same thing over here. Got a point at the ends of my football shape there on my handhold. And I measured my handhold, and it's, what did I figured? I think it's 3 1/8 of an inch across there. So if we added 3/4 of an inch to that, should put me in the ballpark. But that would make things a little wider than what I have marked out here. So I'm adding 1/8 of an inch or 3/16 or so to make that 3 7/8 on either side. So, and I come in here. Of course, this is going to be folded over right here. And I'll put my dividers. I know it's going to have to be folded back about like so. That's on this 3/4 scale tree, a little over an inch. So I'll come in like this, make a reference mark like so. And right here, this is going to be something like this. And let me go dig out a pattern that may help guide us. Here's my rate hunt. You can see how this shape works right here. So we'll use that as a bit of a guide right here to create a shape on one side, and I'm hoping that well, that's about like so. And that's about 3 1/2. So what, 75% of 3 1/2 would be somewhere in the 2 1/2 range. So I don't want to give my shortchange myself. So that's about right there. But I don't, like I said, I don't want to shortchange myself on this either. And I can always trim more of this off. And that's the lack of efficiency, of course, that we deal with, is putting fork cover on, taking it off, and all of that kind of stuff. So it is what it is. So I come in here and punch a hole right there, and cut this out, cut out half of it, and then fold it over. I might double check and make sure before I get too enthusiastic about trimming off much of this. Make sure I have. What I did is I go to the base of the horn and then measure down to where I would want the bottom of my fork cover right there. So okay, now we take this, fold it over like so here, and then get a mirror image on what that lobe shape is right there. Push that out by, and I'll that's a number 9. So biggest spring punch that I have, and if I've got multiple layers in my ground seat right there at the handhold, then I might want to size that up. A bigger hole right there that wraps around that part of the ground seat right there. So got this all cut out pretty much, and I'll scallop this right here, but I'm going to wait until I'm a little bit more certain about whether this length is going to be okay for us. So what I'll do here, I'll go in and skive this off to get that blended. Same way here, skive that off, get it blended, and skive it back to where my brake is going to be, and a little past it, back this way a little bit. And on this, of course, French edge around these holes to a feather edge, and then I will leave this full thickness right there, because that tends to fill in the way I make my ground seats with my risers and stuff up front there. That fills in that gap. If I take that down to a feather edge, then it kind of caves into that little gap and makes my skirt fit a little less adequately. So all this preparation, of course, is so that downstream we have better efficiency and quality as well. And then I'll take this all down to probably, see, I'm only at 10 ounces. This is a little thinner leather for this little saddle. So I'll take that down to probably 5 ounces, maybe somewhere right in there, and feather this out and put it on, and then just determine how things are looking right here, and then scallop that, and then place it back on there. Okay, got my peanut butter brickle all ready to go here. Let's put a light coat of this adhesive on. Dextrin. And that's sitting on a pretty good supply, and the last time I ordered wasn't that long ago, from Montana Leather. Dextrin. For those of you that want to give this a try, it's a wheat-based adhesive. It's been around forever, and anyway, let's go over This is all ready to go. So what I did, as I described earlier, French edged around here to a that's pretty steep little bevel right there. And right where top of my rigging was, where I had skived it down, I wanted to blend that. So I have corresponding taper so that everything transitions real nice. And then skive this out and tap that over to make sure about my thickness right on the edge. So I'm satisfied with the consistency, uniformity of that. And so this thing, and also of course I put it on there to double check here, and I had plenty of had a little bit more bunched up in here than I needed, but it worked out okay because I was starting to tear out just a little bit, and I took my scalpel and just cleaned that out a little bit and skived that down, scallop this. Usually have about 5 scallops. These happen to be 3/8, but I think I use 1/2 inch on my full-size saddles. So I want to scallop all the way to each side so that the skirt will hide. You know, skirt's probably going to come right here, something like that. Some skirts will, I don't want my skirt to come this far, kind of thing. So 5 is normally on these wades is enough. So I'm going to dab some the saddle paste right in here and then put it on. Just don't need very much here. It's a little bit. This paste, you want to mix it up so that it's stiff enough that it doesn't want to, it doesn't run. You don't want it running out from underneath your fork cover, making a big mess. You don't need that. So, yeah, this will work out pretty good there, I think. Now, take a much smaller nail, locate. So you've seen me put a fork cover on before. This is not a new thing. Just make sure I get that. The hard old tree. Okay, let's see. Need to round up my tools here. So, roll this over, and then of course I've got that tab. As you may recall, I want 2 layers of leather that I'm going to spike into here when I put traction on this. So let's see. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to come in right about there. Go through 2 layers. Oh, I missed the one. Let's see if we can regroup and catch that next layer. I won't get too enthusiastic about that just yet. And over here, same thing. I need a tool helper holder or something here. Okay. Fold that under. catch the okay. So you can see what I'm doing here. All right. You just spike that down. Put some tension on the front of that fork cover right there. I'd like that fork cover to be just ahead of the lip. Of the tree. Put some traction on that. Okay, let's see where we are. So I'll lift this up and make sure I got a nice reveal, even reveal throughout the front of that. That actually looks pretty good. So from here on, I'm just going to put a spare amount of nails in here. Don't need many. Just especially as that almost no molding required here. That's going to lay down real nice. And then on the underneath side, I'll put some brass execution pins in those scallops and kind of rub this down. Make sure you have good adhesion. But it's looking pretty good here. I've got plenty of fork cover down here, and I'll just leave that like that. That'll just allow a nice smooth transition right there.